Hey guys, welcome back to Tribe of Unicorns. I'm your host, Kendra, and I am here today with Sara Rose. I'm so excited to sit with you. How are you today?
I'm good. I was so excited. I woke up literally like in vibratory joy. I'm like, this is going to be such a fun way to start the morning. So I'm
Yes,
right
I
there
have
with you.
so many meetings today, and I was like, this is the only thing I want to do all day. Sara Rose is a board certified health and wellness coach, an energy worker, a yoga instructor, writer, wife, and mother of 3. And you've spent the last 20 years dedicated to helping people find their path to well-being. What does that look like? Let's start with, how did you get into this line of work?
Let's see. I mean, it really began with becoming a yoga instructor and finding something that felt like home. It was so familiar and so comfortable. And I remember going to my first class, and then less than 6 months later, I was on a beach in Mexico getting my first certification. And some of the things, part of the philosophy and the way of life, I just remember thinking, I've thought this before. It felt like I had already thought about this curriculum and had this sort of information. So that's where it all began. And that was a great place to kick things off. But it started to get a little bit deeper for me. I realized that this idea of helping others and service was really, really important. But somewhere along the way, I got a little bit stuck in this idea of service. And so it brought me to this place where I was exploring, how do I get out of point A and get to point B? And that's really where the secondary journey began. The first one was kind of self-study and understanding, a little bit of what my purpose and meaning would be. But interestingly enough, it also brought me to a place where I was really dissatisfied. It was, I guess Abraham would say, the contrast of really feeling like this does not fully feel right to me. And I can't understand why, because if I found this thing that I loved so much, then why don't I feel 100% fulfilled and joyful in all of the things that we hear? And moving from point A to point B really became the secondary journey, if you will, another step.
What do you think was missing? What was that disconnect? Because I've been in that situation, and I'm sure tons of people have. I think a lot of our listeners are on this journey of trying to find that soul's purpose or that thing. I think, and especially when you're older, when you've got some years behind you, you've gone through stages and phases where you realize there's something more. Yes, I'm satisfied and this is a great life and maybe I'm very successful, but there's still something. So for you, what was that thing? Because I'm sure once you found yoga, you thought this is it. And then it not being it, how did you get to that next step?
Yes. So I guess the analogy that I would give, how it felt or what was happening, is it would be, if you have 2 piles of cards and you're drawing cards. I think of the game of memory, where you flip the cards over. It was this, I'm trying to make a match with 2 separate piles that would never make a match. In one pile, it would be people pleasing and striving and vanity and pride and all of the earthly things, materialism. And in the other pile, it was ease and joy and freedom and flow and light. And so I would draw from this pile and draw from this pile and be like, okay, not a match. And I would keep doing that. And it wasn't until I could focus on one pile and really change my mindset, my state of being, and understand that this is the pile that you need to draw from first and foremost. And then, there are some other things in the other pile that will kind of come naturally. But interestingly enough, they're less important. And you also get to see their value placement on a scale. And then you realize, gosh, that pile is just, that other pile is merely there to keep getting you back to the other pile.
Like a redirection kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of.
So where did you go after, what were your steps to walking, this new path that you were kind of not expecting to go in?
Yes. Well, if there were 100 steps, The first 75 were sitting and feeling stuck and figuring out, like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to get out of this? And then really the pivot point is it's going to be 100% me, my mindset, my frame of mind, my perspective, my interpretation of what's happening. And then from there, steps 75 to 100 start happening really quickly. But I just wanted to say that because for anyone else out there that wants to go from point A to point B, but you really feel that inertia and you really feel stuck, it is fair to say that you could spend a fair amount of time. But I guess illustrating that is to show that once you get going, right, and you have the right mindset and you're in the right place in terms of your perspective, that it starts to move really, really quickly.
Do you think a lot of it is fear that keeps us stuck? Because I know for me, like, I've done the same thing for the past 20 some odd years. I've run my business and I'm making a pivot now where I'm taking on a whole new role and opening a whole new business in addition to my other. So there was so many layers of fear. Like, can I run two companies? Can I manage two teams? Can I be this person? Can I inspire the women that I so badly want to inspire? Because when I was going through the stages or the things in my life that caused me to start to realize, like, hey, I'm not loving the way I'm feeling every day. How do I make this better? I just couldn't believe how many layers of it was really fear. And it took, I've sat in that for a year. I really kind of pulled back from everything and everyone to just sort of, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know and it wasn't like that I was not myself. It was just such a huge new, I almost want to say like a leveling up that I had to take that time to get comfortable with this new me and then discover like, okay, well now here I am. And what does that look like? And how do I transition this to the world so it doesn't feel like, where did that come from? So I had to, all these fears, right? Worrying about what everyone was thinking, imposter syndrome, blah, 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 blah. Is that what you were experiencing too in that time period of stuckness?
Definitely. It was two things. It was a lot of fear and placing the importance of someone else's opinion first and foremost, other than myself and my team, which would be, the guides, the divine. And then once you make that transition, others will come, meaning you and Rika, and it feels so good. You just know when you're in the right company and the right vibe.
Found that to be amazing. That like magnetic thing that like my people they show up. It's crazy.
It is. I just literally got the chills because I was thinking back to the Eve Academy call, and I just felt like this is one of the first times I've been in company with so many that were really there for the right reasons to support one another. The vibe was just amazing. And that was something that was really new, but the community keeps expanding and growing. And so that it is such an important piece, and it does come and it does align. But I do believe that we have to be the starter. We're the one mentally kind of sending a signal out until we start to think differently about ourselves and what we're doing. The signal has to be on the right dial, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that the fear does hold it back. And then the other thing was just waiting for the external circumstances to change. I'll have more time. I need more of this. I need more of that, which maybe was really fear-based. And I was just using that as more of an excuse. But yeah, piercing through the layers of fear or making friends with them or getting comfortable is, I don't know anybody who hasn't gone through that as they emerge.
And once you, let's say, get to a place that you were striving for, I always find like, oh, actually, there's a whole nother cliff. There's a whole nother mountain. There's another summit. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. I'm definitely experiencing that. I'm sure you are too, as you're creating these two things and putting yourself out there in a very different way, that it is cyclical. And I don't know that the work is ever finished in that regard. The fear never really goes away. I think we get more comfortable and used to handling it and not giving it such a front forward placement in who we are. It doesn't get to run the show, so to speak. Sure, it's
Right.
there, but
How
it's like
much do
a
you think, sorry, go ahead.
no, please.
How much do you think your intuition and your connection with spirit, I know for me, it's changed my life. So how much do you think that has been a huge part of the catalyst of you getting to a new place of being?
1,000%. It's what I rely on most. And I'm curious, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Sometimes I feel like as you're emerging and evolving and changing, you do realize that some relationships and even things and
Mhm.
places just don't feel like a match anymore.
Yeah.
And for a minute, it can start to feel a little bit solitary and a
Mhm.
little bit almost lonely, if you will. But I have found a lot of comfort in the team beyond, your guides and the divine guidance that we're connected to just keep falling back to that. And then the people, your people come.
It's funny, I think, and I don't know enough about like the stages and phases and that we go through when we're trying to become a better person or love ourselves more, whatever that is for anybody. But I've each time I've made these huge pivots in my life, I tend to make my circle real small. And I think a lot of it has to just do with my energy. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm percolating something, like when I got sober, I took a whole year. I didn't really go out much because I just had to kind of like live inside of this new person. And what did I find exciting and rediscovering the world through like these new eyes? And the same thing when I got divorced and became a single mom or even becoming a mom for the second time, like we're always kind of living in a new evolution of ourselves. And I think in my case, a huge part of it was just taking that time to try this new person on. And because as much as we know who we want to be, getting there and living that, it's almost like if you choose a career, right? You're in college forever, you're studying for this, and then you get to your job, and I'm like, oh, this is different. This is not what I expected. Okay, well, I love it, but like, I don't know how to be this yet. So
Yeah.
I find that I hit that a lot where
Yeah.
I just have to kind of just take all my energy, keep it in because I need it. And then when I'm ready to kind of share more, I'm able to come back and connect again and start to give a little more energy outside of myself. Does that make sense? Do you
That
feel this too?
totally makes sense. I think that's very intuitive and so wise. And you said so many things that you were forming a new relationship with yourself. You were getting to know yourself. And so that you need a lot of time and attention for that. And there's a lot of discernment in that period. And I've been in that period so many times as well, where you are bringing such awareness to your behaviors and your patterns of thought and what you do and who you interact with and what you reach for and what you don't reach for, that it takes up a lot of time. And energetically, that is also something that I tend to do as well. That I, at one point in time, my energy could just bleed into someone else or theirs could bleed into mine. And I was sort of formless in that way. And I really needed some structure and some boundaries. And it's also okay when you are evolving in that very delicate sort of leaving the cocoon, if you will. And it's a little bit, I mean, we don't want to use the word struggle, but it's a little bit of work. And it is self work. And sometimes we just don't want somebody else's energy commingled with that. And I think it was maybe Jerry Hicks or somebody was saying, when you're in the middle of something, whether it's an idea or you're birthing something new, it's not a terrible idea just to keep it to yourself or to only be around though that kind of energy that is only totally in support.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like a very precious time where you're just trying to meet your new self, kind of curate the the things that you like at this stage and the things that you don't and sort of course correct a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with coming into this new company that I've been starting, I originally thought it would look one way and started to go in that direction. And I was like, oh, actually, this still doesn't feel right. So let's move this way. And like, oh, yeah, this feels good. So it's sort of like this walking blindly and just feeling your way.
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
that's it. That's not.
It is
And
like a
being okay with
feeling
it.
compass in being okay with it. I mean, that is, I just so appreciate that, you know, speaking with so obviously I adore you personally, but just when someone who can reflect and talk about something that they're going through and the journey in such an authentic and pure and real way, that is what is so revitalizing, at least for me, where I'm like, okay, wait, that's right. And it's good to hear. How did you do it? Or that was the same for me, or this worked for me.
I think trust plays a huge role in any sort of transformation as well, because you will get the things that kind of come back at you, like to sort of test you. So as long as you've developed this sort of like baseline, like I know who I am, I know what I want, and these are my truths. Anything else you can sort of deflect.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that? Because I know a lot of people will want to be this thing, but everyone's like, no, but you're this thing. And you're like, no, no, I'm not. Look, I grew. You weren't watching.
Right. It's different now. Absolutely. And it makes sense. I can understand how for comfort purposes, the world we like it to be how we, predictable. And if somebody's changing for the other person, they can start to feel a little bit uncomfortable because that rattles something within them where they're kind of like, wait a minute, maybe I don't know who I am. If this person's changing, but I love that you brought this up because I refer to this as break testing. The
Oh,
universe will break test you. You will think, okay, wow, I'm really getting through this. I'm evolving and changing. And then the next day, something that would typically activate you or even trigger or bother you, whatever word you want to put in, comes up. And then it comes up and it comes up again. And it can make you think that you've made no progress at all. But really, I feel like the universe is like, okay, you've moved through this chapter of the curriculum. Let's see it. Let's see you now. Because when it's easy, it's easy. When it's flowing, and that is one, not downfall, but one aspect of the retreating process as you're doing your change, is that you are a little bit protected from the environment. And the idea is to get solid enough where it doesn't matter what the environment is doing. You know what you're doing and you're forging ahead. But it is a real thing that sometimes you go back out there and you're kind of like, oh, wow. So
yeah.
the brake testing is good. It means you are ready.
I love the break test. So what happens when you fail the break test though? Because
Well,
oftentimes I'll feel like, oh, I've made 40 steps forward. I'm so excited. And then I'm like, oh no. You sort of take 3 steps back. Like how do you manage that? How do you get okay with that?
I think it's the perspective of what it is and realizing I'm only receiving this again because I can handle it. And if I need something to measure, is it the duration of time that I
Mhm.
thought didn't, that I was being hard on myself, or I didn't really make the progress that I thought, or I can't believe I'm here again. I was only there for an hour instead of a whole day or a week, or my next action proved to be the real self, right? That's how we really know if we grew. If in the next moment it was kind of like, all right, well, if this is really true for you, whether you put out the post or the memo or whatever it is, that's sort of the proof to yourself, where the break testing is just like, yeah, I can get through it. I'm completely aware of it and amazing. Thanks for the reminder, but I know how to manage this now, and on we go. It's not always that simple, but
I love that, using that sort of break test moment as a measure and to understand where you are in your progress. So I was recording a video the other day about like morning routines and how, they're just non-negotiable and they've changed my life. And then as I'm recording it, I realize, oh, wait, I don't do any of this right now at all. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's my universal sign. Like, start your meditation, get back outside and walk in the morning. And I'm making all sorts of excuses like, well, this and that. But yeah, that was like a little break test moment for me. Like, okay, you like to fall off the wagon when you get bored. let's realign and readjust.
Well, to be fair, one thing for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, I am organized and systematic in that when I've chosen a morning routine, so to speak, I like to stick to it. And I have to have the clear perspective and vision, x-ray vision to see through that I'm actually measuring my success for checking off all these boxes, rather doing it from a place of it just sets my vibration and it's really truly joy. So
Yeah.
I used to do Kundalini every morning for years. I mean, I did not miss a day. I could be on vacation. It would be some way, shape, or form. But then I started to notice that I didn't want to do it as much anymore. I felt like there was something else. But in that little transition period, I interpreted it as not being successful and falling off, but it was really a recalibration and a time for me to say, what is it? And so now I'm meditating more. And I'm not needing that same sort of more intense, subtle body work into the energy system at this point in time. So I remind myself that it has to be flow and fluid, and the cells are changing every day and every moment. And so maybe it's if I fell off the wagon, I just need something different. And you might know the walk is amazing for you. I know you love your walks, and
Just
like I
can't
can see you on the walk. I can feel it. I know how much of a return you get. So for you, you're like, yes, the
I
walk
do.
is it. But for some of us, or some of those out there that have that moment of breaking a pattern, it might be a reorg time to say, well, is there something else? Is it I'm just going to have a cup of tea with myself quietly in the morning? Will I journal instead? Will I spend time with an animal or in nature or some other way?
Yeah, that's I think something that people don't I I don't want to say it's a judgment, but if you're like for me, I was putting my walks out on social media every single day, and it just fills me with joy, so I get really inspired when I'm out there. However, we have ticks on Long Island. Like ticks, it's such a problem. I actually have I can't eat meat anymore because of it. So I physically cannot go in the woods. And I can't tell you like how I'm waiting for a frost to just kill these things. But for me, it feels, and I'm doing other things and I know that, and I don't have to justify it to anybody, but I feel like I kind of do. So, because I've been posted my walks, I can't post my bike rides because I'm on a bike. So, and I've worked with enough people in my life, especially my neuro performance coach, Jessica. She was like, well, you just get bored. It's fine to switch it up. And I was like, is it? But you have to be, because I feel like there's this thing where you have to be like, this is it every single day without fail, da da da. And it's just so boring after a while.
Yeah.
So like I guess, can we give everybody permission to like switch it up and not feel bad?
Absolutely. The switching it up, I was sort of feeling like the universe was helping you stay on that leading edge for yourself and pushing the boundary a little bit and finding something else other than your walk, exploring something else that will find joy. But absolutely, there does need to be permission given, because I was the same way. I'm like, wait, I didn't do this. I'm not successful. Or wait, I equated that with being, there's a little bit of perfectionism, I
Yeah.
think, that goes with it. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I'm a shocked perfectionist. I didn't realize like or I guess like undercover perfectionist.
Yeah, yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, I have this problem. Because it doesn't show up in the same, like I'm a Capricorn and I've often been told like, oh, you don't really feel like a Capricorn, because I have like this like sort of hippie vibe, but at the same time, like I want to get SHIT done. I'm going to get it done. I have like a crazy drive and I love running a team. Like there's a lot of Capricorn things that I do like, but then it's also like the Stevie Nicks sort of,
I love
I
that.
want to
You're
in a
Stevie
yurt.
Nicks Capricorn. I feel that Capricorniness from you, and I love it. I love that earthy, grounded sense. But I know what you mean. You do have a change up and a lightness that I feel like you don't always see with the Capricorns. It's almost like the Virgos. It's just like very set it and do it, and this is what we're doing, and that structure and the sameness feels so good. But I wonder what you'll find to put in place in the morning. I mean, have you found something yet, or are you?
to replace my walk.
Yeah.
Well, I was walking on the street and like pavement and not just the, so no, I'm just biking later, which I really need the morning thing. Everything in me just keeps telling me sit down and write. So
Okay.
I have
Now,
to.
have we put them on hold when they say everything that tells you sit down and write? Are you just like, well, I'm going to put you on hold for a second?
To be very honest, yes, I get like a bratty teenager type of attitude. Like, well, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm just going to do what I want. And I know it's not productive, but, yeah. So sometimes I just, turn it off, but, I know I will feel so good if I start to listen to what they're telling me.
You will feel so good. You know what? Okay, I'm just going to tell you this because it just pops into my head, so I'm going to tell you. But I could kind of see you. Maybe it's Stevie Nicks. I could see you putting on some music, and I know just hang with me for a second because it might sound like too much, but dancing around or just moving in a free sort of, what was that Nia, that energy movement kind of, just
Yeah.
anything free flow for X amount of time, right? And I just could see you doing it and then sitting down to write because clearly something's trying to come through.
I know.
Yeah, something's
That's when
knocking at the
during
door.
COVID, I was taking a lot of like online physical classes, like workout. There was this one class and it was intuitive dance. And it was me and this woman, I think in Czechoslovakia. And we were just on Zoom, like, yeah,
That's so good. Did you like it or was
loved it.
it?
Well, my first experience at Kripalu
Yeah.
was this booty body dance class where,
Oh.
I mean, you had to just release, let go. I mean, we're banging our bellies, we're banging our butts. And I'm like, I don't know anybody. It's fine. And then all of a sudden this girl comes dancing up to me and she was like, Kendra. And I'm like, God, I know you. I really know you. And it turned out to be the most incredible thing. And we had such a good reconnection. And I ran into a high school teacher. It was just crazy.
What?
But there
That's
is this
wild.
thing about like moving your body. And I guess that's what I love about being outside and being physical in the morning. It sort of just wakes up every neuron and, all the things in our skin.
The energy, all of it. And
So that's a good point, though. You're very intuitive. You're psychic. Would you say that? Can I say that?
I would say that.
Yes. Own it.
I
So good. So is this how you work with clients? Like, give me a taste of what a session would look like with you. And then how does that work over time? Like, what does that timeline look like?
I think I first want to say everybody is psychic and intuitive, and it's our practice and our skill of tapping into it. Using it becomes, what's the word? It just happens without you even realizing it.
Automatic.
And when you're so automated, when you're so focused on, we call it in coaching, other focused listening, where you're really focused on the other person and you end up listening kind of with your whole body and you just know what to say and then know what kind of direction to go. I think what makes it a unique experience is that it totally goes the other way from one size fits all approach. And it's really dedicated and tailored to the person that you're working with. But it feels very natural. And it doesn't mean that you say everything at once. I think about over the course of my years and my journey from then until this point and what will be from now until the next marker of time, and working with Marianne and having readings or intuitives, it can't all be said at once. And things have been said to me in the past that I remember thinking, okay, well, that makes sense. But if you're not really ready for that moment, it's not as helpful. It's not as potent. So using that tool of intuition and the psychicness there is a lot of discernment, and it's really with the highest good and this idea of helping this individual, this spirit, this soul see themselves the way that they really are. And yes, maybe they're have a goal around career or health and wellness, some other area of health and wellness, but that's really what it's about. And so it's going on a tandem bike with them on their metamorphosis journey out of the cocoon and providing a really safe and supportive space where you're like, yes, you can do this. You've got this. And certainly the intel does help give some direction.
I think it's incredible because every time we've sat down and talked, you always have like this otherworldly bit of conversation that it's so helpful. Because I think I've been, in that world for a little bit now, and it's hard to trust your own intuition. So when you have someone like yourself who's so in tune and repeating back to you what you already know, it's so helpful because you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I can trust myself. And those are the same messages. And that tracks. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And then it's the strengthening our ability and skill to keep defaulting back to trusting ourselves, because that's what it is, right? We always have this inner knowing, this feeling that it should be one direction or this feels right and this doesn't, but we just keep overriding it. And it's, I do think mentors, coaches, guides are so helpful in that way to not necessarily be with you forever, but to strengthen that skill and ability of, okay, I'm going to listen to this instead. I'm going to listen to this until it becomes such a behavioral pattern, similar to the opposite pattern of not listening to yourself. We just start to stack more things in that pile.
Right. What happened? Do you have an example of when you didn't listen to yourself and then saw it play out and then were able to look back and use that as another layer of, okay, trust your gut because look.
I'm trying to think if there's a one recently. I mean, I feel like they happen all the time. Sometimes are if we use an earthly scale, is it a bigger thing? Is it a smaller thing? But it could be as small as scheduling an appointment. I was just like forcing it. And I was like, oh, this time is going to work. It's going to fit perfectly. Everything's going to be so organized in the planner. And I just knew. And then, of course, I had this feeling something else was going to pop up I didn't know. And then I had to go and reorganize that. And that's just one example, but certainly larger things of take a job, don't take a job. Right. Knowing that environment, walking in and feeling like, no, but just being so fearful or not listening and saying, I have to, because the unseen is too scary of a place. And it is all unseen as it unfolds. Yes, we can manifest with visioning, and it's really powerful. We use that in coaching all the time. Athletes, CEOs, everybody uses vision because it's so powerful in the brain because it can't distinguish what's real and what's not. But the truth is, other than the present moment, we don't really know. We have no idea. And so it's the unknown, the risk, I think is the
visual too. I love that. I mean, I just had a photo shoot and honestly very much inspired by your photo shoot.
Yours was so good. I loved the
so
pictures.
Excited. But it was funny because it was another like nail in the coffin of the confidence I needed because of that visual. So like when you can't picture yourself in this new role because you've always been, I've always sat in the background. I never was comfortable being in the forefront. Even this podcast wasn't video until last year. So, it was always like an easy place for me to be the voice without the face. So then doing that photo shoot and actually seeing like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to be. And then like, hello, that is you.
Right. I have to bring this up because it just kind of popped through, but do you feel like there's still more work to do? Or are you feeling like you're at the place of, is it A, there's more work to do? Is it B, there's always more work to do, but I'm in a really solid place? Or is it C, I'm not really sure. I don't know what that means.
I'm getting a visual of standing on a mountain, like the side of a mountain that I've been climbing for a really long time, but I'm on a shelf that's pretty long. So I see like where my next steps are, but I'm good right here, right now. Like I need to just like sit here and like smell the roses before I'm ready to take those next steps because there's like work to do here. Yep. But I never feel like it's a huge trigger when someone says to me, are you done? Because like, I'm never done. I never want to be done. I
Right.
want to be like
Right.
85 and be like, oh, I didn't know that about myself.
Yeah. Yes, there is. I think you put it in such a beautiful way. I see you on the long platform. It's really safe. You said it's a long, you can see a lot of things from it. You know that there's more work to do and more to climb, but you're feeling very content where you are.
Yeah.
And that you're sort of at this point, maybe you're forming a new relationship and working on the things that you're working on here. I do think it's important to know that there is always work to do and things to create, but a lot of your personal work is really solid and good. And we can get low key stuck and trapped in, I must need a little bit more work here and there, rather than being willing to flick it off of us super quickly and
Yeah.
say, oh, it's that again, and just get rid of it so fast. And so there's not any, what's the word, not residual, but yeah, residual effects on it. But I think I loved that, that vision of I'm here, I'm doing things, there's more to be done.
Yeah. Cause I feel like I just got there and like I'm still
Mm.
like wiping the chalk off my hands from climbing. Like, let's take a break,
Take a
enjoy this
moment.
moment, celebrate where we are. Cause I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we do. I don't think we celebrate those little mini milestones
Yeah.
where we're always thinking like it's the big stuff. But, just the fact that, you woke up and checked off a box today or just feel great. That's a huge win.
The present moment of everything is where really it is. And I have to remind myself all the time, don't be so too forward thinking, don't be too goal oriented, because where we are at this moment in time, if we don't savor it along the way, we get to the thing that we wanted and we're just on to the next thing. We
Right.
can't really fully enjoy it. So I'm really, really glad that you mentioned that, because it is something that I'm always just saying, you know what this is, let's just like relish and enjoy where we are at this moment in time. And I love your analogy of the climb, because in my journey, I felt like in the beginning it was a solo climb and I was so scared. I was so fearful and I felt alone. And I was like, how am I going to do this? This is impossible. And then through the process, the solo climb is invigorating. And I'm so drilled into what will be the next step. And I can only focus on that. And it's like really joyful and delicious. And the accomplishment, and you can just, your senses are heightened of what's around you as you're climbing. You can enjoy the people and the things. And so that shift in mindset from the beginning of the mountain to where you are and enjoying your climb is, I just, so good. I love that you're like wiping the chalk off. You're like, okay.
Right. And now we have to like throw down the lines and the belays or whatever to the people below us. Like, come on, it's great up here.
Yes. So good. You're totally right. That's excellent. Throw it down. Just be like, come on, you can do
Yeah.
it. We're
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah. I got here. All right, cool. Who's coming with me? And then, we'll go to the next step together. I don't know. One of my big core values is constant wonder and joy. So if I am fascinated by something or I love showing my eyeballs new things, and that is just at my core. I have to live in wonder and I have to live in joy. And if I'm not on a path that brings me either of those things, like I have to turn and figure something out. I think it's
Wow.
a really, really big part of understanding who you are is defining your core values. And if you think about it and you really work on that and meditate on it, it's probably your 5-year-old self and what you loved when you were that old.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
you don't really change. You just sort of get muddy.
You get
So then we
muddy,
spend the next
layered.
like 30, 40, 50 years like shaking that off.
Seriously, I was thinking about that just the other day of watching children or people who are younger than us. We'll just group it into that category. And everything's new, learning new things in school, going new places, meeting new friends, having new activities, new. And somewhere along our journeys, it just starts to slowly shift where we either don't want as many new things, we're not offered as many new things, and many of us just go for comfort, and we don't want to be uncomfortable at all. And whether it's even a new route that we take driving, we just like it to be the same. And so how refreshing and invigorating that you really live your life with this core value of newness and learning something new and giving your eyeballs new things. It's so good for your brain, the neuroplasticity of different pathways. And I mean, it's really healthy. You got a healthy brain up there.
Sure. We're working on it. It's funny that you say that about the kids being so. I have two children, and you know, while they were younger, it was fascinating watching them discover the world. But even now, as teenagers, like my son's 17, and watching him navigate things that I very vividly remember, because now they're like in the stage of life where you have like super core memories, and watching him sort of discover and go through this huge transformation of like, who do I want to be? What direction do I want to go? Like figuring out like, I like this, I don't like that. And then as a parent, trying to give them enough space to figure that out and not tell them like, oh, actually, but maybe if you, and did you try? And just sort of sit back and be like, okay,
Right.
let's
Check
see.
that out. See how it goes. I think it's with the wisdom that you gain over the years of your life and your own experiences, watching your children, especially the teens, as they're forming who they want to be, what they like, and who they'll be in the world. It's exciting, and it's also sometimes challenging, at least for me, because I look and I think, which pile are you drawing from of the cards? You know, is it really coming from a place of true purpose and joy and meaning? And I know that they have to figure that all out. Or is it the world sort of putting that external environment saying, this is who you should be, this is what it should look like, this is what you should choose to, you'll find ease if you fit in this particular way? Because I see human beings all the time that want to do it a little bit differently, but feel the confines of, well, don't be too different.
Well, I think that's our job as a mentor or a parent or a coach, is to dispel those shoulds.
Yeah.
And, you know, my son came to me last year and he's like, I want to be an engineer. And I was like, no, you don't. What are you talking about? And he's like, well, I can't be a musician because you can't make money being a musician. And I'm like, yeah, don't do that. So now he is totally on the more music creative track, wants to get into production and maybe lighting or sound something. But I love that I saw my job was to remove any limiting beliefs. And it's not just for our kids, it's to do for the people around you. When, you know, somebody's around you that says, you see them like putting themselves in a box and you're like, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't have to live like that.
That is so cool that you were able to extend and offer that to him and say, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I don't want to say it's only generational, but I do feel like I hear from so many people in our generation that our parents did do that. Well, you could not be a writer because what are you going to do? You could not be, if you want to be on television, do you know how many people are on television? A very slim few, and they only know somebody or whatever it is. So I really am happy to hear that you're saying, do it, try it. I mean, the experience itself, even if he ends up choosing something else, that belief in himself, the rigor, the trusting him, all of those things are the skills, the muscles that we want them to flex, because it's not so much what it is, it's how we do it. You know, it's how we go through it. So I mean, this is a 10. You get a gold medal today for that.
But that's what I want to do with women too, because I see them doing the same things. They're like, oh, well, I'm a mom of two, I can't do that. Like, you absolutely can do that because you're a mom of two. You know, I think people like you and I in the positions that we're in, like that's our mission. Like, you can do anything. Anything is absolutely possible. If that person did it, great. Use it as a tool to show yourself, I can be that too. I don't know if this is something that rings true for you, but anytime I'm trying to, especially when I have to like own a new role, that title single mom was real hard for me to own. And not that I own it in like any sort of negative way, but it was just sort of this thing that I used to judge, to be very honest. And then when I was in that position, I started looking at people in the universe around me that were also in that position and cherry picked what I liked about the way they were living. Oh, well, I could feel that. I could do that. That makes that person feel good. I'll try that. And sort of like helped me kind of piece together my new self from the people that I was admiring in my world. Marie Forleo was an absolutely huge part of that. Even when I was dating my now husband, I asked him to buy me her book, Make Every Man Want You. And he was like, what? And I'm like, no, no, no. But it's about just kind of like owning who you are and being unapologetic about that, and just being in the world as yourself, and how attractive that is because it's your authenticity showing through. But yeah, taking pieces of people and sort of helping me put together this picture of who I wanted to be and how I could live my life. And also in contrast, seeing the things that I didn't like a lot of divorced women around me were so angry. And I was like, that sucks. I don't want to be that. I don't want to hate my ex-husband forever. Like right now, okay. But like, I can't live like that. So do you see that being a good method to kind of moving through a transformation?
I mean, that is amazing that you were able to, in that time, reframe and take something that you had, it was a negative thing to you, and figure out how to see it as a positive thing and look at others and say, wow, well, this quality or attribute or whatever it is, and they can do it, I can do it. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. For some of us, we'll look and it will be further confirmation of why we can't rather than why we can. And so flipping the script completely is such an important thing. And I feel like you also expanded your circle of compassion and empathy for those going through something that you were going through. I mean, we've all had those experiences where we truthfully, low key or not, might have judged that person or that situation or circumstance. And then we're in it ourselves and we can say, okay, wait a minute, hold on a second. A, I have no idea what's going on in the world. B, it serves nobody to judge myself or
Yeah.
them. And so I just think that's amazing. And also you have become an amazing example to other single moms out there that might be feeling like, I don't know if I can. Like, this might be my identity. This role might be my identity, which is so not true.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Owning those titles, and when they're, especially when you have a negative connotation around them, like you just don't have to. And it took me a long time to realize that. Like I was 2 months pregnant, walking around without my ring because I'm in the middle of a separation, and just being like, oh boy. And it's so funny because every time in my life, and with such clarity, I see myself saying, I would never. And then I always do. If I attach that to something, you can guarantee it's going to happen and I'm going to do it.
Me too. The word never is, I am very careful with that word because it is destined. If I say I would never, or soon, I'm just waiting for it to come down the pike.
Right, right, right. It's like my guides are like, okay, noted. Hold on. Wait.
Right. Send her this because,
Right.
I
She
mean,
needs to be put in her place a little bit.
there must be some inspiration and motivation and empowerment that comes from that experience. Being 2 months pregnant, I'm a mother as well. I have three, and it's level playing field for all of us. It doesn't matter what you've done, what you've studied, what you have, what you don't. It's challenging. It's challenging for all of us. And then 2 months pregnant, going through a separation, and is that a positive memory in that
Yes.
when things are challenging, you reference that and say, well, I know I can do anything.
Well, I always say the funny part was the challenging part wasn't when I was a single mom. It was to be very honest, once I finally got to that point where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. It was so freeing and I was so much happier. And even having, a Mia was born. And then, my son was about 3. Looking back, it wasn't as hard as it was when I was trying to raise my son with my ex-husband. And we have a great relationship now. And I adore his new wife. But it wasn't hard to be a single parent to them in that way. It was challenging in so many other ways, but like it was so much easier mentally. because I was just in such a better place. I wasn't angry. I wasn't resentful. I wasn't expecting things that weren't ever going to happen. So, and I also got to call the shots, which apparently I like to do.
I mean, listen, calling your own shots is cooperation is amazing and teamwork, but calling your own shots is it's a real thing. It is a necessary thing. And I think people think it's selfish, or when we hear that, we think we will do things that are not nice to others or detrimental, but it's not. Calling your own shots is really important because we're aligned with purpose and meaning. And when we're aligned with purpose and meaning, call your own shots because it will always be the right choice.
It's boundaries. I think that's what I mean when I say that, because now that I think of it, like it was just, no, not going to do that. No, I'm not going to live like that. And I stopped having people put upon me their expectations. Immediately when I told my parents I was going to get separated, they were like, well, you'll move in with us. And I was like, actually, that's not happening. So, I think it was just when you are going through these times of transition, having the courage to make that first leap, but then continuously having the courage to discover yourself, be comfortable with who you are, and then I am this now, and I'm not going to step back. And although, yes, I used to be that for you, I'm not anymore. And you can do that in business. I've done it with clients. I've done it with all sorts of relationships and all sorts of challenges. And I think it's a huge, huge part of helping you grow, because if you continuously say, I want to be here, but then you let somebody else pull you back, you'll never move forward. And I think I also had to realize that I wasn't being mean by doing that, because when you're changing, the people around you, either they don't expect it, they're not ready for it, they don't want it. And like you said, there's a bit of a mirror there. When I'm sober and I told, I'm very open with all of it. And I would tell people and they would be like, oh, you didn't have a drinking problem. Do I have a drinking problem? I don't have a drinking problem. I'm like, you're good. Don't worry about it.
You're like, you're fine. It's actually just, I was stating, but the feedback that you were getting, I mean, that happens so often where it does rattle other people when we start to shift and change, but it's also good. It's necessary. It's a good exercise.
I've found that it takes a minute for relationships to catch up, but when they do, because you're in such a better aligned place, once the other person can meet you there, and you guys can kind of find this new level playing field together, it's so much better than it was before. And I've often seen where, like, if I have a challenging relationship in my life, I'm the one that has to change, because first of all, it's the only thing you can control. But it does allow the other person. It's almost like if you have something in like a mold, right? And then you remove a piece of it, that other stuff like has to fill it in. They don't know what to do and how to be. So it kind of takes a minute for the people around you. And I guess it kind of goes back to what I was saying initially, like showing up as this new person and getting comfortable and like letting the world adjust to, okay, this is who she is now. It takes courage. It takes time. It takes patience. And it's interesting to see.
It's a very, very well put. I think of it like, at school when they have a weather hold, and you might not have, in Florida, there's a lot of thunderstorms. So we're on a weather hold.
We had nuclear power plant drills.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. Well, it's an energetic hold.
Okay.
When we're in a relationship with somebody, the energy is a certain way, and it almost puts a little bit of a hold on the relationship to go the same way, and then someone else shifts and changes. But I've noticed that too, as I've made changes and it's steadfast and holding, then that other person can kind of shift and it all molds, and it actually has gotten much better. And also sometimes you find that it's just a little bit of not as much of a match. And there doesn't need to be necessarily a big to do about it, but maybe it just sort of grows apart organically. But I wanted to mention somewhere along the way when you were talking that it's important to note that once we've made changes and we've grown, we can't go back. And the 2 steps back, we always are tricked into thinking that we've gone back, but we can never go back because we have that new awareness that has just pushed the boundary a little bit. And so it is important to remember with that expansion that feels like we might be shrinking back, but we're really not. We're just being
Thank
great
you
with
for that. Yeah. Because I think it is a fear of like, maybe I'm going to be that person again. But you're right. Like once you kind of take the veil off, you can't put it back on. So you're never going to be the same.
Yes.
When you were in a place like, let's say your lowest place or your the point of transition, if you could go back and talk to that girl, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that it really does seem reductive, but I would tell her that it's mostly distraction. I know you think it feels so real and it feels so impossible, but all of your barriers and everything, they're just mere distraction. And let's just attend to the distractions one by one. And I probably would tell her we would redirect who we're listening to in a faster way. I'd say we're only listening to this. If you really want to figure out how to get out of this, then this is what we'll do. Yeah, I guess those two things. And just tell her she's amazing. Just be like, girl, like you got this.
I wish I could go back and tell myself so many places in my life where I was like, I'm worthless and blah, blah, blah. And
what would you say to yourself?
just that to trust myself more. And you'd say very similar, like stop focusing so much on the external and the feedback and the what's incoming, and just kind of turn in and really, who are you? And trust that.
When we probably give ourselves, truthfully, now that we're in this line of work, we'd probably give ourselves practices too, tangible steps to say, just for now, anytime, for example, that you have a thought that tells you that you can't do something, let's write it down and then write down a countering thought of the opposite and see, because sometimes we don't see the intense pattern that we put ourselves in. If I had done that, I might have filled up a notebook in a week. I can't do this. This is why I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have the resources. Everybody else is better than me. I mean, on and on and on. And so I might have a visual and see, wait, okay, no wonder. Because didn't you feel like you read some books back in those darker moments? And even with my spiritual practice, but it still wasn't enough. I needed those tiny little steps to kind of draw me out and move me forward.
Yeah, I don't think there's any one thing that would have been like, this is it, and now I'm snapped.
Trust yourself, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I think, and it was so funny when you were talking, I was thinking, if we were functioning as our own guides, like if we were looking down on ourselves, what are the challenges that we would put in our path so we could learn the lessons we so badly need to learn? And if you kind of look at what hits you that way as like a thank you for this opportunity, I'm sure, it's just we'd look at it differently.
I mean, girl, you should write that down. I mean, that was a good one. That was really, really good.
Is that the second or third time I'm told to sit down and write today?
I mean, seriously, but you should write that one down. That was good, because that's exactly, in my opinion, probably what's happening. And we just couldn't see it that way.
Yeah. Oh, I could get real wooey right now.
I know, you're like, yeah, I can tell. You're like, oh, it's coming through. It's happening.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, I guess I would say the website or social media.
Yes.
You would know best.
Your link.
How do you answer that?
Well, we'll have all your links in the show notes, but people can find you on your website. Your URL, forgive me, is Sara Rose Wellness, right?
Yes.
SaraRoseWellness.com. Go check out all her blog. Your blog is beautiful. Your wellness diaries. Sara Rose is, there's something about you that just jumps through digital that I absolutely love seeing. Your social media is, I love your cooking show. There's just something so like warm about watching it. So definitely go follow Sara Rose on Instagram too. I'll have her link in the show notes here as well. But yeah, there's a huge amount of inspiration that your feed provides. I think people that I mean, everybody needs it every day. You need something that kind of keeps pushing you forward, whether it's a great blog or a podcast episode that just hits home, or like a song that you're like, oh, I needed to hear that, or one of your beautiful cooking videos that just make me feel so warm and fuzzy, like I'm sitting in my grandma's kitchen.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kendra. I mean, you're just the best. And I really, as someone who's been so important on my journey, I can't thank you enough. It was really, it will forever be, I feel indebted to you because it was your nurturing and your care and your team and your work and just saying, yeah, you can do this. We can do this. We're going to partner together. And it was just, it is really, it's changed so much for me. So I will be forever grateful. And we'll
Of
be
course,
friends forever.
absolutely. I don't let go of people. You're stuck with me, girl.
I want to thank Sara Rose for coming on Tribe of Unicorns and becoming an official unicorn. So wonderful having you on the show. I hope anyone that this episode resonates with, I wanted to thank Sara Rose for coming on the show. She is such a beautiful, incredibly talented life coach. I want to thank Sara Rose for coming on the show. I absolutely love sharing my resources with this audience. And if anyone is looking for some guidance in their life in a very beautiful and holistic way, Sara Rose is definitely the person for you. So please check out her website at sararosewellness.com, and all of her links will be in the show notes. We'll be back with another episode real soon. Thanks, guys.